John Mendez, and this is the latest in our how-to series. This time we're looking at the basics of driving a boat with a joystick, and for our example we've got an IPS drive style. When we look at the controls here, there's a couple of basic things we need to know. Once we've engaged the docking button, the joystick becomes live, and at that point there is nothing happening. However, in this central ring, and I kind of think of it a bit like a dartboard, we have the ability to twist the joystick, and you can probably feel a slight vibration as I twist and the drives engage, and that allows the boat to rotate. Additionally, we have the ability to push forward or back, and that engages both drives, either ahead or astern, to make the boat move. And we can also push to the side, and with some clever wizardry they align the drives to make the wash move the boat physically to one side or the other. We can also push in a slightly diagonal motion, and that's where we have to be slightly careful because the boat's trying to go in this sort of plane, but the problem is we're doing a twist and a sideways movement to make that happen, and it can get slightly confused. So it's good to keep your movements simple and reference them to the outside world of what's happening. So our IPS basics are really starting with those traditional skills. So I've got to transit out the side of the boat so that I can see I'm nicely stationary. I've got some nice poles in this marina, and then on the bow I've got a nice little transit. I've got my bow roller and a couple of posts in the distance, so I can see that my boat is stationary both ways, and I'm comfortable and I'm in a stationary position to start with. So to make the boat go forward, really simple, I just push the joystick forward, that engages both of the drives, both in ahead, and it just literally drives the boat forward. If I want any steering while I'm pushed forward, I can twist the joystick in the pushed forward position and the boat will gently steer. So ahead is really nice and simple. And now to bring it to a halt, just going to bring it back. And while I'm bringing it back, I'm looking to the side. So if I get my transit again, I'm nice and stationary again. I've lost the bow a little bit, so I'll have a little twist just to bring the bow back in line. And now I'm going to bring the boat back, so just bringing the joystick astern, engages both the drives astern. Little look behind me, and I can see I've drifted off a little bit. So a little twist here, and then bring her back again, pretty much to where we start. I'm still coming back, not quite to where we started. Little twist, just to straighten her up. And we'll come back onto our original transit. So all the time I'm referencing my transit on the bow, my transits to the side, and the moment I get them stationary, I know the boat will be stopped. So I'm still moving back, little push ahead now, stationary on that, little twisted, so I'll have a tiny twist just to straighten them up. So that's the basics of how do we make the boat go fore and aft. We push forward, and while we're in that pushed forward position, we can twist to steer as well. So if you think of it a little bit like a dartboard, we have a 50 in the centre. We rotate in that 50 zone. Outside of that we have a 25. Once we get into that zone, we're allowing the boat to steer fore and aft, but we can also twist it to actually drive both drives together to actually move the boat in a positive direction. So whilst we're in that neutral zone in the middle, no drives being applied. So if I want to move the boat sideways, I'm going to move it downwind to start with. There's a little bit of breeze going this way. I'm just going to push it across the joystick laterally across, and that's moving the whole boat. I'm still on my transit, got a beautiful transit outside. I'm not moving fore and aft, I'm just moving sideways. My transit on the bow is moving, and the boat is moving nicely across the marina. Now, obviously I'm going downwind, so if I don't stop the boat, I will crash. So as she comes in a little bit closer here, I'm going to push back the other way, still on my transit fore and aft, looking at the one on my bow. My boat has stopped moving this direction, so let's bring her back to the centre. So pushing the other way, and this time we've moved forward a fraction, so I'm just going to come a little bit of a stern, little twist to straighten her up, and then pushing across, looking to the side. I can see my boat's just moving sideways, a little bit low on the bow because we're going upwind. So as we get a little bit closer, little twist at this point, and that will allow me to bring the boat round parallel to my original plane. Coming around quite nicely now. And we've managed to push it a little bit upwind. The wind is slowing my movement, but it won't stop it. So at this point, it'll push back to the centre. Stationary fore and aft, stationary on the bow. So all the time I'm watching and my head is moving to allow me to judge what's going on. So we've looked at our first two skills, which are obviously driving it ahead, driving it in astern. And then we've looked at moving the boat sideways, going downwind and then going upwind. And whenever you move the boat sideways, it will never move perfectly laterally. If you go downwind, you will quite often lose the bow quite quickly. And if you go upwind, you will often find the bow drag. So one has to be very conscious of drawing an imaginary line down the centre of the boat and comparing it to your surroundings to make sure you're happy. Our third skill we need to master is rotating the boat. Now, in an ideal world, we always want to try and rotate the boat bow to the elements. In this case, we've got a breeze coming across us. You can see it on the flag from the aerials, and that just allows you to judge what I'm doing. So I've got the boat on a slightly different transit. I don't want to be opposite the posts now, as the marina is just about spacious enough of the boat. So what we're going to do is we're going to rotate to starboard pretty much on the spot. So I'm looking to the side again, still got a nice transit. I'm just going to now twist very gently and just hold it. And I can see I'm moving aft just a fraction, so tiny push ahead, keep my rotation going. And I'm looking at the bow and that post and thinking, yep, we'll miss. It won't be huge, but we'll miss. Because I'm going towards the wind, as I rotate, the wind is blowing me away from these posts. So in actual fact, it's relatively safe to do so. Just going to have a little movement forward so we don't get too far down in my space and continue my rotation. And all of this again is just a very slight movement of the hand, little twist of the fingers. As we come all the way round, I'm going to stop there because obviously we've given the boat momentum in this direction. Little twist the other way to stop the turn. And again, looking for my transits, we're moving back a fraction, let's make a stop. And make the bow stop as well. And there we are. And you'll see we're slightly more downwind than when we started, but fore and aft and laterally we're nicely positioned. So I'm going to do a little push to the side again, just to bring myself, and you see straight away I lose the bow a bit. Let's do that little push across, just to bring her gently up. Okay, we're now moving gently upwind. We'll do a little twist, and just stop her there. Back on transit. So, having looked at that central position, fore and aft and side to side and the twist, we can now combine some of that and move the boat in a diagonal fashion. So I'm going slightly forward and slightly to the side, which if I'm gentle with it will allow me to push the boat in a diagonal action. Now, because I'm losing the bow very slightly, I'm doing a tiny bit of twist as well. So the boat is now going pretty much 45 degrees from my original intention, and I've got it going well once, I'm going to let go. Because otherwise, if I give it too much momentum, it won't stop. So we're just going to have a tiny twist here, just to straighten them up. Looking quite nice there, and we'll bring it to a stop on the transit. So I'm just looking at the post next to me. Thinking, yep, we're stopped. Fore and aft. Just looking at the bow. Tiny push to the side to stop. So we've done a movement in that direction. Now when we're going towards the wind, we've got a natural element stopping us. When we go back and we go downwind, we've got to be quite careful, because as we do this, there is a danger that the wind will do exactly what we want and throw the boat downwind, which would not be good. So now we're going downwind quite nicely in that diagonal motion, and now I'm going to push the joystick towards the wind, and you can see I'm losing the bow, and then we're going to have a little twist just to bring us back to our original position. See, I lost the bow quite a bit there. So going downwind, one has to be very careful to make sure we're monitoring all the time. Fore and aft pretty much stationary, tiny twist there just to stop that bow. and we're back where we started. So it's all delicate, monitoring all the time. Now where our joystick, and in this case IPS boat, has a massive advantage over traditional boat is if I was in a traditional boat here, unless I had very powerful bow and stern thrusters, I would never sit beam onto the wind, because all the time I'd be being drifted down and I'd have no ability to constantly move the boat sideways. If I had electric thrusters, they'd run out of thrust. Hydraulic, I'd be using them lots. But the great advantage of an IPS boat is that I can sit effectively at the wrong angle, and then as the elements pick me up, I can just move myself back into a position of safety. The huge disadvantage is that if you're not aware of what's happening, you can get blown or tided into a situation that it cannot rescue you from. So having a good understanding of what's going on, using those transits, thinking which is my safe and which is my danger side, is almost more important, because the boat leads you up that garden path of it's invincible. And in light conditions, undoubtedly. In medium, with a skilled operator, definitely. But if it's well windy and you put it across, then you will end up in difficulties. So just be conscious of what you're asking it to do.